World of Warcraft Midnight is the newest expansion from Blizzard Entertainment, and it is bringing a whole bunch of new lore and storytelling to the game, which I am very happy to share with you all today. Currently, at the time of me recording this, the World of Warcraft Midnight Alpha is going on, and today I want to share with you all the introduction to this expansion in terms of its story, its world building, and the direction that Blizzard is taking us with this new expansion. I of course want to shout out Zygor, this channel's sponsor, World of Warcraft's ultimate add-on for World of Warcraft Midnight, which is linked down below in the description if you want to check them out. But let us begin with the introduction to World of Warcraft Midnight. The story of this expansion begins with the cinematic that likely all of you have seen. Xalatath, in her desire to plunge our world into the void, is attacking the Sunwell just north of Silvermoon, which acts as a type of barrier to her domination of Azeroth due to it being so filled with the power of the light. And if she can extinguish that light, the light of the Sunwell, she will have no issue truly immersing Azeroth into her void. But all that stands in her way is Lorthramar, the Regent Lord of Silvermoon, Lady Liadrin of the Blood Knights, and of course, all those defenders of Azeroth who have come to defend the precious Sunwell. As the expansion begins, the heroes of Azeroth, they do their best to defend against Xalatath's attack, but they are ultimately grinded down, and it's only a matter of time until Lorthramar and his forces are defeated. And in a last-ditch effort, Lady Liadrin petitions the Holy Light for aid, and it responds by sending forth the Army of the Light to Silvermoon City. Now, who is the Army of the Light? Well, in a nutshell, they are a faction in World of Warcraft lore, and they're primarily composed of Lightforged Draenei and other enlightened races who have waged an eternal war against the Burning Legion for many years. These were the guys that we allied with during the Legion expansion during the assault on Argus. But maybe we could do a whole video on the Army of the Light another day. Anyway, let's get back to Midnight. With the Army of the Light now present, the battle becomes a little bit more of an equal playing field. And this is where you, the player, are dropped in. So now we have officially entered the expansion rather than just talking about the cinematic. The first thing that we are told to do is we have to rally the defenders of the light, as all the madness and chaos of the battle has left the armies scattered across the Sunwell ramparts. Immediately, though, a little bit of tension is established in the story between Regent Lord Lorthramar and Turellion, Turellion being the High Exarch of the Army of the Light. Now, whereas Lorthramar is focused on the protection of his people, the Blood Elves, Turellion just wants to focus entirely on defeating the Void. He does not believe in any sort of defensive or protective strategy. He is full offense, even if that means sacrificing civilians in the process. Now, this is something very important to remember, as this tension is going to pop up later in the story, and Turellion also gives us a mission of wiping out as much of the Void host as possible, as well as finding his son, Erator. Now, Erator, he is a member of the Silver Hand in-game, and his mother, for those that didn't know, is Alleria. Alleria, she is the void-corrupted blood elf that was obsessed with hunting Xalatath in the War Within expansion. So you kind of have this mixed religion relationship going on here between these two parents. Turellion is all about the light, and Alleria, well, she dabbles in the void. And Erator is caught in the middle. Finding the young man is easy enough, but when you do find him, he mentions that something odd has happened. He says that he was overwhelmed, not by the void, but by the light. He says that he kind of blacked out for a second, and when he awoke, all of his enemies had been destroyed. And this mystery too, this strange relationship to the light, its ferocity, is also important to remember because it's going to pop up later. Let's find those champions of the light, however. Across the ramparts of the Sunwell, we find heroes such as number 1, Farron Lothar. She was one of the main characters from the War Within expansion. She was the one who helped Anduin tap back into the virtue of hope and restored his faith in the light. The second is Alonzus Fowl. He's the former Archbishop of the Holy Light, at least back in his life before his undeath, and he was the one who ordained Uther the Lightbringer as a paladin. And last but not least, we go and find Lotharaxion on the battlefield. He is a light-infused Nathrazim, and he's the High Commander of the Grand Army of the Light. And after gathering up these heroes and sending them back to the reorganized front lines, we return and find that Lorthramar's patience with Turellion is continuing to be tested. Lorthramar tells you that Turellion is not even considering the lives of the civilians of Quel'Thalas, and so the Regent Ancient Lord of Silvermoon asks you to spend a bit of time actually saving his people instead of just fighting the Void. And it's just then that a second wave of Void spawn appears on the battlefield, which causes Terrelion to rally the army of the light in a new charge against the enemy. Now, Erator, he goes to help his father, but Lorthramar quickly stops him, asking him if he would please assist with protecting the civilians caught up in the battle, which Erator, he agrees to do. Now, he does seem a little bit uneasy about not following his father into battle, but the High Exarch will understand, at least hopefully. You and Erator go on a little adventure yet again, finding civilians trapped under rubble or running from Void Spawn, encouraging them to make for the docks where ships are departing for Silvermoon City. The two of you also help with defeating a rather large pile of void goo that is preventing non-combatants from escaping the battlefield. This pile of goo is no match for both of you, however. Once the job is finished and the two of you reach the docks, you are informed that Xalatath in her cruelty is sending many of her void spawn to attack the evacuating ships. Now Lorthramar, he's having none of it, of course. He tells you to mount up on a light-infused Dragonhawk, which looks awesome by the way, and to go and protect his people. And what follows is a short flight quest where you're not only shooting down void squids up in the air, but also saving civilians that have fallen into the water or who are trapped on overturned lifeboats. And it's thanks to your heroic efforts that the evacuating ships are able to make it through. But now it's time to rejoin the army of the light who's fighting over yonder and take the fight back to the devouring host, Xalatath's army. So riding with Erator, the two of you make your way back to Terrelion, where he has assembled the army of the light for another strike against the Void. And he is very quick to scold his son for having abandoned the army to go and help the civilians of Quel'Thalas, claiming that Lorthramar could have handled that all on his own. Erator had no business being a part of it. Before Erator could fight back, however, Terrelion proceeds to order a blind charge into the army of the Void, leaving you and his son behind. And once things have quieted down, Erator tells you that he has observed two things about the Void army. The first is that the Void's army seems to be being powered by a large pylon that is helping to summon in more forces, and this pylon needs to be destroyed. And the second is that Erator has managed to scout out 3 of the Void's commanders who need to be taken care of. Yet again, the two of you are off on another adventure. The pylon can't be destroyed by the both of you, however, it's far too dangerous to go and meddle with barehanded. So instead, you two guys come up with the idea of going around the area reactivating the defensive sentinels of the Sunwell to go and destroy the pylon for the army of the light, all while wiping out the Void's leadership along the way. And it's during this part of the story that Erator begins to talk about the light and how it's been affecting him lately. Erator begins to notice similarities between the light and the Void, in that whenever somebody is overcome by emotions like wrath or pain, anger, or whatever, the light and the Void seem to respond in a similar way, giving to the user new power and new strength. He also tells you in confidence that sometimes, whereas most people assume that the light only fills you with a sense of peace and calm and tranquility, every now and then the light also fills him with wrath and anger, and he's not really sure what to make of that, especially when it comes to the relationship to the Void. What does all this mean? Well, we don't really know at this point in the story. We gotta keep playing and continuing on. We destroy the Void's leadership. Xalatath, of course, does a little bit of taunting, apparently, and then we are off to regroup with the army of the light yet again. And also, yet again, Terrelion is very quick to scold his son, saying that Erator, once again, broke formation, and he shouldn't have done that. But it doesn't matter, there's still a battle to win, and Terrelion is more focused on that. It's at this point in the story that you are told that there's apparently ethereals that have been spotted looting the nearby buildings surrounding the Sunwell that could possibly turn their attention to flanking the army of the light, and this cannot be allowed. So you're told that you gotta go out and kill some ethereals, but you're also told by Lady Liadrin that within these buildings are legendary weapons blessed by proximity to the Sunwell that you need to collect so that the army of the light can use them against the Void. What follows is actually a very cool quest where you're not only slaying the ethereals, but you're also looting the legendary weapons from the Burning Crusade expansion that were used in the Tempest Keep raid against Kael'thas. Many of you, maybe, remember these weapons, and each of them has a unique power that you can use against enemies while you're doing this quest as you pick them up one by one. After gathering all of them though, it's time to go back to Lady Liadrin and Terrellion for that final push against the Void. The Army of the Light, now filled with hope thanks to your efforts, and with all these legendary weapons, they push forward, and soon there is a great battle with this large Void behemoth. Luckily though, thanks to all the power of the legendary weapons that you gathered, the army is able to banish this massive creature back into the Void, but it's too soon to celebrate. Because from this creature's death suddenly comes two more, summoned by Xalatath. It took the entire army of the light to defeat one of these things, but now there's two. Terrellion and the commanders, they have no choice. They are forced to order a full retreat, a retreat back to the Sunwell itself for a final stand. Lady Liadrin stresses that the only hope now is to call upon the power of the Sunwell, yet again, hoping that the light will in some way aid the defenders of Azeroth through the precious fount of the Blood Elves, or else, well, everything will be lost. So you make your way back to the Sunwell chamber, and there you make your final stand, fighting against the pressing forces of the Void, and once their primary leader is defeated, something incredible happens. Right now we don't have the cinematic for it, but the Sunwell, driven on by the prayers of the paladins and the priests that surround it, suddenly erupts into this large bloom of light, sending a massive beam into the sky that crashes into the void tear above, preventing any more void monstrosities from entering into Azeroth. Xalatath's army has been stopped dead in its tracks. And although this seems like a victory, the Sunwell having blocked the Void Rift, Editor, he expresses worry, knowing that this ritual of prayers to maintain this sunbeam, it cannot be maintained forever. Xalatath will return soon enough and bring forth her midnight, and the heroes of Azeroth must prepare for it. What follows is a return to Silvermoon, where you meet with the Regent Lord Lorthramar, where he is discussing with his council what needs to be done next. Terrellion says that the Army of the Light will agree to keep guarding the Sunwell during this time, and for when the Sunbeam ultimately fails, and Lorthramar is forced to accept the necessity of having an alliance presence maintained in Silvermoon during this critical time, much to him and his people's displeasure. The Void Elves, however, the Rindurai, they are called, they are refused access into Silvermoon, however, as their presence alone could cause a disturbance in the Sunwell's magic. Now, if you do play a Void Elf player, I'm pretty sure you can still go to Silvermoon, but I haven't tested that. And from there, it is time to go off into Greater Quel'Thalas, my friends, because we are told that apparently the Sunwell's magic has caused something called the Light Bloom to appear all across the country, and you need to go out and investigate. But my friends, that is a story for another time, because that is entering into the greater world, and we are just covering the introduction to the expansion today. If you guys would like to see me cover the rest of the story of this expansion, just let me know. Just be advised that obviously big spoiler warning. So having played the introduction to Midnight, I would say that it's very similar to the Legion expansion introduction, at least in how it feels. All these heroes gathered into this one spot, defending against this seemingly endless enemy that is tearing its way into Azeroth. It definitely has Legion vibes going on. And I really like how the Void is attacking this one specific spot on Azeroth, and it makes sense for them to do so. Back during the Legion expansion, I kind of had the question of why was the Legion not invading like literally everywhere? Why just the Broken Isles? And I felt like that was kind of one of the weaker parts of the storytelling, but I understand, you know, limitations with the game and the design and everything. I get that. And the cool thing about Midnight is it makes sense why the Void is just trying to wipe out the Sunwell. This one specific area of the world is where all their efforts are focused, and it makes sense, and I really like that. One thing that I do not like, however, is how stupid Blizzard has made Terrellion. In the introduction, he's like comically stupid. He's the dumb father stereotype that needs his child to fix him. It's a very old trope, and it would maybe work, but considering that Terrellion is a battlefield commander that has lived for untold years due to the power of Naru magic, he's incredibly faithful to the tenets of the light. He's one of the founders of the Silver Hand, along with paladins like Uther the Lightbringer, and the fact that due to the fact he was fighting out in the twisting nether where time and space was warped, we don't even know how old this guy technically is. He's just blessed with a weird immortality thanks to the Naru. The point is, I think that him acting so dumb and rash and uncaring towards innocent people is kind of ridiculous. I think it would have been a lot better if he had struggled more with a sort of moral issue. Do I protect the innocent? Do I face the overwhelming host, even though, you know, the innocents might suffer? Like maybe a bit of a struggle, but Terrellion was just, no, I want to attack, and screw the civilians. And I thought that was kind of weak in terms of his character. And the last thing I'll talk about is something that I both love and kind of don't like, and that is the ending. I love that it feels very good story-wise, that the Sunwell is now holding back the void tear up in the sky. But at the same time, I admit that I kind of don't like how Xalatath's invasion of Azeroth is stopped in less than an hour. You know, you go from fighting the void that's pouring out from the skies all over the Sunwell, and then suddenly you're just sent off to kill cats and mana worms in Eversong Woods while we wait for Xalatath to come back and the Sunwell to fail. I think that's a little bit odd personally, but to be fair, I have not quested through Eversong Woods yet, nor what was the Ghostlands, the Amani Troll area, and so on, so maybe that sense of the invasion of the void will return later on in the story as I continue the quest line. And again, if you guys would like for me to share that story with you all as I myself discover it, I would be more than happy to make more videos right here on Nixium. Thank you for watching, everybody. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I hope that you all enjoyed this look into the introduction of World of Warcraft Midnight.